stairs, and I will kind of hand this over. For the first person, go ahead.
All right. So Nick, you talked about some things that you found in this market that are different than what people would usually expect. And I'm kind of curious, what strategies have you been seeing developers use that just don't work in this market, and you'd love to just abolish those myths right now?
Well, first of all, I think the market's so young that it's not worth abolishing anything. But one thing that I've seen not work that Young actually alluded to is the subscriptions. A lot of people have tried it with great hopes and just abandoned it within a couple of weeks. So it is a proven model on the open web with some of the really high-quality MMOs, yes. I really don't like saying that a lot of the games on Facebook right now are lower quality. They're designed to be less robust. That's not because people don't know what they're doing. That's very much by choice. And whether or not that plays into a subscription not working, I don't really know. But yeah, something that I've seen fail is subscriptions.
Okay, and then I was just curious, is there a place where we can get all your slides, all of you?
Mine are actually, I did a similar one in Taipei, so if you go on SlideShare and just search OfferPal Taipei, basically that same thing will show up.
Yep.
Also, we're going to ask all of them if we can put them on the site. And
the answer will be
Social Game Seattle.
Yeah, Social Game Seattle, they should be up there. We'll try to get some link to that.
All right, cool, thank you.
And feel free to email me or Twitter or whatever. I can answer questions.
Hi, so thank you to all the speakers. I thought all the talks were really cool. It's a really cool event. My question is about, so there's a lot of talk of, how do we make money, from these people, and I know that was kind of the name of the event, show me the money, right? So we expected a little bit, but, and maybe just to soothe my worries, I feel a little bit troubled that there was maybe more talk about how to extract money from people than how to use, the technology, which is so new and exciting, and we are the people who are deciding how it's going to be used in the future. How do we maybe make these games support what the user actually wants? How do we make it? I felt like maybe the focus was more on extracting money from the user than to support their activity, which is maybe a more sustainable thing. So my question is, are we strip mining this market? Are we factory farming? Is this sustainable?
I'll pass the mic in 1 second, but I think I can speak for all of us when I say that if you give the users what they want, then you can monetize them. But I have nothing more to say.
It's, and I kind of alluded to this, it's really critical to know what is an entertainment product for your user, and that's why I say know your users. What they want is what they'll pay for. At the end of the day, you need to give them an entertainment experience that they're willing to come back to and invest time and money in. That's rule number one. And unless you really know who is playing your games, you're not going to do that well. And I was saying earlier, there's many different ways to make money in this market, but you really do need to know who's playing your game to know which of those rules are going to be applicable to you. I broke it down today just by 2 different areas, by gender and age, but it's way more complex than that, and it would take a lot more than 20 minutes to go into it. But yeah, get to know your user, because that's how you're going to make them happy and also your pocketbook happy.
So I just want to say real quick that basically everything we've talked about are essentially tools, right? And I mean, it's kind of weird to say it, but there's good, and bad uses for every tool. We're essentially providing functionality, and we're talking about functionality, but how you use that is really up to you as a developer, right? And the idea behind monetization for all of this is we're just basically talking about how people have made money in the past. We're analyzing it. But the truth of the matter is, for instance, advertising is I've been pretty tightly tied with advertising, and you can break it down into, I'd like to break it down into 3 buckets where there's good advertising, neutral advertising, and bad advertising, right? And if you apply advertising in the right fashion, it can be a great experience for a user, right? It just depends on how you execute it, really. Most of the time, it can be a bad experience if people don't really care about the user when they're just trying to promote their brand, right? And there's also neutral experiences where it really doesn't have an effect. It's the same thing with the monetization tools that we're talking about, and it's really up to developers to be creative and to come up with new ways to utilize the various tools that we're talking about. And it isn't really about strip mining this at all. It's really, it's an open field out there for creativity about how you do it.
I'll also add that a lot of the users view the monetization tools as a feature. So the app that I worked on, Make a Baby, existed for about 6 to 8 months probably before we added the virtual currency. The currency itself was a big hit, and then 2 weeks later we introduced OfferPal, and the forums blew up. People were ecstatic. It was a new feature. It was a great new thing for them. So it's definitely not about strip mining. It is about offering different opportunities for the users.
So, once again, I'd like to share everyone else's thank you and all for being here. My question is, what do you think the greatest threat is to the social game category in terms of monetizing? And I'll just throw out 3 potential scenarios. One would be platform intervention. Second would be government intervention, whether it's taxing virtual goods or the like. And the third would be, as a possible scenario, a shift in consumer perception and behavior. So I'd just love to hear from the 4 of you what you view as maybe the iceberg that's swimming under the water.
I'm going to go with number 4.
That was not a...
Yeah, I'm going to say ourselves here in this room, because if we screw it up and we do it in hacky ways that drive away the users, away goes the revenue. So it's important for us to build it into the entertainment experience to make sure that it's something that's sustainable for all of us long term.
Sure, yeah. I'll just add to that. I think, ultimately we are in the entertainment business. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a peaking in people's willingness at the platform level to accept the amount of spamming that's coming from all these different social games. And so I think it's something that from the platform side, we're going to be very careful about how we manage that going forward. It's not going to be a Wild West anymore. So we'll start to see it close down. But if we're providing entertainment value and people are want to come and play, then I think it will sustain, and the business will sustain also.
So I alluded to this at the end of my talk as well, and I would like to address actually 1 and 2 that you were talking about. It's basically, if they actually do too much taxation, let's say at the platform level or at the government level, if it's too heavy, right, it will essentially drive developers away, right? And as I mentioned, if you drive the developers away, the platforms will die, and then after the platforms die, then where's the government going to get taxation from, right? And this is a giant feedback loop, essentially, and that's why I was also alluding to the fact that as developers, you guys have a very, very powerful voice in all of this. And if you guys feel that things are getting too heavy and you don't feel that you can make money on these platforms anymore, it affects everyone. If that, the perception of being able to make money, if that disappears, it's all gone, right? So as developers, and I encourage everyone basically to speak up if they feel that's coming down the line. Like FB Credit is coming. If you guys actually feel concerned about that, you should raise your voices to Facebook and say, I am concerned about this, because if everyone in this room raised that voice, I guarantee you there would be impact. And it's the same thing at the government level too, right? The various platforms would have to raise their voices to the government and say, hey, you can't do that because we don't have a business anymore. If we don't have a business anymore, you're not getting anything out of us. So